Hello everyone. If you want to go to my free course, type henry-ward.co.uk into Google, then go to Henry Ward Trading, and then this here is my free course. Click on Start Today. If you want to go on to the webinars that I do every Sunday and every Wednesday, click on Trading Academy and then click on Start Today. So this is the Trading Academy. This is the full training, the webinars, direct access to me, everything that you want. Is that Gazprom you're talking about, Tyson? Yeah, they were dropped as the Champions League sponsor. So I think that was the big reason that they dropped. Well, it was one of the main reasons as well. Yeah, they have a 30 million a year sponsorship deal with the Champions League. The Champions League dropped them as their main sponsor. Let's have a quick look. How did you say that? Oh, there she blows. Also with the Gazprom has frozen on eToro. Okay, so just to give you a little sort of thing with eToro is eToro, when there's a big market movement like this now, I don't mean on one particular stock, but once there's huge movements across the market and there's huge fluctuation, the platform is not able to handle the load. It's just not able to handle the load, unfortunately, which means then that the platform crashes because there's too many people trying to log onto the system, trying to do too many things, and the system is just overloaded. So what they do then is, if for some reason their glitch has lost people money, you email your account manager, you chat to your account manager, and then what to do is they get you to sign an NDA, and then they usually reimburse people. So that's generally what happens. Shell also announced that is divesting from Gazprom. Yeah. It was worse when GameStop was overpriced. But again, the idea is you shouldn't have been in GameStop. Whatever about Gazprom, I understand that you're looking at oil and gas and you're potentially looking at it to go up, but I wouldn't be massively investing in Russian stocks at the minute. In my opinion, there's better stocks out there to be investing in. But again, that's what happens. Putin is destroying all Russian people's future. You say that. I'm pretty sure he's destroying Ukraine's future more than the Russian people's future. But I get your point. Yeah, it will take years to understand. But again, it'll take years and years for people to trust them again and to build up the relationships again. And yes, absolutely. He's not only affecting Ukraine, he's affecting Russia and also the rest of the world as it is. Yeah, anywho. So let's have a quick look and see how it all has affected the markets. So we've had 3 bullish days in a row. Okay, we've had 3 bullish days in a row. We've had a pop to the upside. Then we had the announcement that there is potentially talks on a peace agreement with the likes of Ukraine and Russia in Belarus. And then that sort of gave it a second day of bullishness, and then yesterday, then we had this big jump and then drop. Okay, there's a big jump and then drop. No, I don't think there'll be peace either. They've gone too far now to start drawing up peace accords and stuff. But then yesterday we had this drop and then we had this boom again. Now, when we see this drop and jump, what are people thinking about what's going to happen next at this particular point? When the majority of the chat there is go lower, look, I would expect it to drop. I'd expect it to drop. I don't see this continuing. I don't see this continuing. But is there an area for us to take this short at the moment? Is there a place for us to take this? Is there anywhere where we can actually take this? Not really. There's a tiny little bit of sort of support and resistance here at this particular point. Okay, you could argue that there's a potential that maybe there you're using this here, but again, you're clutching at straws. We're sort of making this up, aren't we? It's not a great level. It's not a great area for us to be trading off of, but there is a bit of support and resistance there. Now, if you're someone who is wanting to have a little punt on this, you want to have a little bit of a go on this, then there is a potential short on that. Trend line doesn't really work either. Let's see, does the bigger one work? Potentially a bigger one works there. So horizontal, there's a very soft horizontal there. There's a very sort of soft trend line there as well. So it's not something that I would sort of recommend, but there is a potential trade there on that. I did have a look at it last night, whether to jump into it or not, and then eventually decided not to. I was looking at it on the 4 hour, potentially around there. It did drop and then it popped back up. So I did decide against it. It was actually this doji bar, I think, what I was talking about, because this is off that level there. I was thinking when I was talking about this doji bar here, you would have been triggered in and then triggered out if we'd have taken that on the 4 hour. But there is a potential trade there short at the moment. Now, the problem is that we're using today's bar. We're using one that's moving right now, and we should really never do that. We should really never do that. There's the 3-to-1 down at this particular point. So there is a potential trade there to the downside. Is it the best trade in the world? No. We've had 3 or 4 bullish days, which generally means that we then get a push to the downside of what's going on at the minute. If we will look at the other ones here, we have the S&P. So the S&P has actually come to a much better level. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5, we've got a break and retest there. Now, again, with this one, we had this bullish pin bar, okay, or a low test bar. Now, people say, well, Henry, it's not bullish because it's red. It's bullish because of where it finishes, not the color. Could we wait till the 4 hour gives us a setup on that one? Just go back to the Nasdaq. We could, but when we get movements here, look, movements, Is that a 4-hour pullback? Is that an ideal setup? No. Here comes down. Is this an ideal setup? Nope, move sideways. Comes down. Is this an ideal setup? I suppose that's the best setup you have. Comes down, doesn't hit a 3-to-1, comes back up, and then goes again. Is this here an ideal setup? No, that's why we took a limit order or set up a limit order rather than, so it's not giving great setups on the 4-hour. So you may miss it. That's the point I'm trying to make. But again, if you're looking for that certainty, then you wait for the 4-hour setup. Yes. So the S&P then had this sort of low test bar or bullish pin bar, and we are back at this level. It's a much better level. Again, I did look at that. Again. So we had entry there, stop loss there, and if you would have taken that, you would have got triggered in and triggered out, I assume. Let me have a look at the 1 hour and see what would have happened there. Actually, you may not have been triggered in. Went up and then come down through. So you're actually probably only triggered in on the way down. So my bad, you probably got away with that one. And at the present moment, you are risking 0.6, you're 0.4 up. It would have went to a 1-to-1 at this low. 3 6s are 18. So just leave that about 2% there. So that's about a 3-to-1 there at the minute. And that trade is still there. If anyone took that, well done. Did anyone take that on the 4-hour? I'm assuming that's a no. But again, the S&P is giving us a sell-off already. It's giving us a sell-off signal. It's telling us that today. You took it, did you? Well done, Tyson. It's telling us that this is dropping. Okay, whereas if we look at the Nasdaq, we haven't had that yet. It's indecision, we're waiting. Now you can some people will take the anticipation that once one of them go, all of them will go. Matt's in that trade as well. Well done, Matt. So some will look at this and go, well, there's a trade there. It's worth a punt. It sort of meets the rules. And well, it doesn't really meet the rules because this bar hasn't started yet. We're just trading on the futures market. So this is the buyers and sellers in the morning before the market even starts. So the S&P on the 4-hour was a better trade. You wouldn't have got triggered in till it started dropping, and then you got triggered in on the way down. So well done, anyone is in at the minute. And then the Dow. So the Dow, there are more levels on the Dow. Okay, so there are more levels on the Dow, which means that you could argue that there was a trade there, bounce once, twice, and look, there it is again. We're back at that level. So you could argue that at this particular point, 1, 2, 3, sort of 4, that it's there. We drop down to the smaller time frame because again, the bar is too big to take on the daily chart. There's no risk to reward for us here to be taking this on the daily chart. What entries here, stop losses there, you missed the whole movement. You would have had to drop down to the 4-hour to take it. Took this on a limit order, and look, which one did you take? This one, which is A or B? Which one did you take? And if we took that there, well done. Stop loss above it, entry there. Stop loss there, entry above it. Absolutely well done, good trade. Now the problem is then it come down and then double topped. Now depending on the broker, depending on where your stop loss was, you would have been triggered out. Okay, so we were risking 0.7% there, and this went down to a low of 1.4. So it went down to a 2-to-1. Now, I don't know what your target on that was or where it wasn't, but that's 3 sevens are 21, so about 22 and a half. So there, so that's where we're sort of looking, that's where we're looking where the stop loss is. Now, if you looked at this and you then would never have got in on this, but then you have this double top. So this double top, you could look at this and go, oh, well, I'm a little bit late, but there still looks like a trade there. So now we're looking at this double top and we're expecting the market to drop. So your overall momentum, looking for it to go down. So you could actually put your entry just at the bottom of that bar. So the stop loss is at the same place. So we're literally on the entry right now. And we're risking 1.3. So 4%, this would have to drop for us to hit the 3 to 1. So let's see, do we have enough room for that? So just inside this previous low. So let's have a look at the daily chart. So on this particular scenario, we're looking at this as a 4-hour setup. So stop loss there, entry here, and we're looking for it to hit this double bottom. Okay, so that's what we're expecting the market to do. Now, again, whether it will do this or not is a completely different matter. Do we think that the market will continue with its bullishness, or do we think there's still more downside on this? Is the stop losses in the correct place? Am I wanting to jump in on this and try trade it? Or am I better off keeping my money in my back pocket and just staying away from it? They are all the questions you sort of have to ask yourself at the minute. Because let's be honest, this is not a normal market to be trading. This is not the easiest market in the world to be trading. But there are setups there. There are opportunities. We are bouncing off support and resistance levels. And we are going in a general overall direction. So you just have to work out, is it worth the risk versus reward? Remember, when you're taking the likes of these trades, you only have a risk in 1% of your account. Why? Because it means then you have 99% left if you're wrong. And that's the beauty of trading like this, is that we can afford to be wrong. Out of 10 trades, we can afford to be wrong 7 times, and we still make money if we stick to the 3 to 1 risk to reward rules. Now, again, because of the market is a little bit unprecedented at the minute, we might not stick to the 3 to 1 rules. You might stick to 1 to 1 or a 2 to 1. And you then, if you're sticking to a 1 to 1, you have to have a 51% success rate of hitting the 1 to 1 risk to reward. So, for example, that's risking 100 quid to make 100 quid. It's risking 1,000 to make 1,000. So you have to work out what sort of things we're doing that should be good or shouldn't be good. Now, let's have a quick look at the German DAX. I was sort of waiting for this to come back into this level, and it didn't do it. If that had come back, I would have been taking that as a short, and it didn't come back for us. So we have these on the smaller time frame. So this in the daily, it's just all phase 1. This here is all phase 1 coming down. And as we can see, I wanted that to come back to that level, and it didn't. So we see this is all sort of phase 1 coming down, and that's still all part of that same phase 1. But if we drop down to the smaller time frame, we can actually see a phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2, and we're in the phase 1 right now. Drop down to the smaller time frame, look, phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, we're in now. Yes, it's not ideal because it gapped, pulled back up, closed the gap, and then took off again. Is there anywhere we can trade here? Not really. Not really. But again, it is bouncing off this trend line. Is there a setup here? Not massively, no. Not massively. You have this little tiny inside bar here. Where would your stop loss gone? Above there? If you've done that, well done. Good trade. Shane, did you take this? I know you like trading the German DAX. So entry below that bar, stop loss above it there, and that's risking 1.7. And at the moment, you're 1.8. So at the moment, you're 1-to-1 up. Now, again, do we think we'll break these lows? Absolutely, probably. I would absolutely expect it to break those lows. 5.1 is our 3-to-1. Okay, so you're waiting for it to go lower to buy. Let's have a look on the daily. I'd expect it to at least double bottom here or even break. Because look, any of these levels we've had, yes, they've held for a while, but they're sort of breaking. Now, if we grab this one here and move this down, there was no real coincidence that we had some sort of rejection on this one here. So look, we had a rejection once, rejection twice, rejection 3 times, and then today looks like it's breaking through. But again, we could get another rejection, but I'd expect it to break through that level. I don't see that level anywhere as strong as this one. So I'd expect that to break down through. And look at that one. 1, 2, 3, and look, rejected that perfectly. So I'm gonna remove this one. Just gonna move that down a little bit lower. So we have these sort of levels in place. So that one there seems to be much better, doesn't it? The 13777 level. That seems to be an area where the market seems to be sort of, well, it's tested it once. So now looking at that level, looking at the rejection we've just had off that level, would we be looking for a 3-to-1 on this? So I'm just going to zoom in here now. So would we be looking for a 3-to-1 here, down here, or would we be looking to put our take profit just slightly inside that? What do you guys think if you were taking that, if you'd taken that trade? And this is where a little bit of, when you're placing a trade, well, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of expertise comes into place. And just finding these levels, finding these areas. Now, if there's bad news comes out, this will just obliterate that level. If bad news comes out, but if the market doesn't receive any bad news, if it sort of carries on doing what it's doing, we would expect it to double bottom and then have some sort of a bounce. Now, the question is that bounce going to make a higher high, or is it eventually going to break that bottom? And we would expect it to break that bottom. Would expect a little bit of a squeeze on Europe with what's going on with the likes of Ukraine and Russia, with Russia being kicked out of SWIFT. We would expect a bit of a squeeze on the likes of Germany, the likes of Europe, the likes of even Britain. Now, what sort of squeeze can we expect on the likes of that? Well, Russia supplies about 43% of the oil and gas to Europe. Okay, so that's a huge supply line that is basically cut off. Is basically cut off. So that then means they have to try and source it in other means, which means then that we would expect to see some sort of a jump down the likes of oil and gas. Then we have embargoes going on with the trade. Any Russian ships that are in European water are being seized, which means then vice versa will happen. Any European ships that are in Russian water, they'll also be seized. Remember, we're going to have an awful lot of knock-on effects with the likes of this, with the likes of what's going on. And just be aware. So do we think European markets will continue to drop? Yes, I do. We may get a little bit of stability in the US markets first, but I fully expect Europe to continue dropping. And if we look at the French CAC, this trade, We had a pop back up, and now today has put you back massively in profit in this one. Anyone that took the French CAC off this retest here, you may not have get triggered in, or you may have, depending on if you left that trade there and where your entry is. So you may or may not have got triggered in there on the second day. But if you left the trade there and got triggered in, well done. Again, the level where I'd expect to have some sort of rejection, this is down here. We have had a little bit of a bounce there of that, but again, this for me is the bigger level, this one here. So we'll see if it goes back down there. And the UK 100, which has been the stronger of all the indices that we sort of looked at, has been rickshaw as well. It's now made a lower low. It's now made a lower high. And then today we've had sort of this two sort of selling days, Monday and today, Tuesday so far. So it looks like there's more sellers in the market than buyers. Can we go down to the smaller time frame and sort of look at this? Not really. Not really. Why? Because we don't have sort of an overall trend as of yet. And you could argue that we've had a double top there. Did anyone take the double top short? If you did, well done. Over momentum's going down. Or you could argue that, look, it's bounced off this line once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. And then this bar here, look, touched it 7 times. Bounce, 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 bounce. And then the retest. There was a short right there as well. Again, is it the best setup in the world? Not really. 1.4. So you have a 2-to-1 before it hits that low. Is it the best trade in the world? No. But again, it's about as good as we're going to get in the market at the moment. Okay, it's about as good as we're going to get at the minute. I would definitely be looking to take my profit before this one here. Why? Because the UK market is not as hit as bad as Europe. We have a pretty decent level through here. So which means then I would be looking to take my profit there at 7213 if we take that. The fact that Putin has threatened to use nuclear weapons, would that change the narrative and the expectation in the market? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The first nuclear weapon that's used could massively change the narrative of this. And it means then that, just say the likes of Germany, which have said they're going to pledge tanks to Ukraine. If Germany do that and then Russia see that as an act that they are now jumping into the war, and then it happens that they start sending missiles over to the likes of Europe, this European market will crash it'll drop like a stone. Absolutely. We saw the Russian market, I don't know anyone had saw the Russian market drop something like 50% on the first day of war. So it's, yeah, I would massively see that if it spills over into mainland Europe, yes, this will continue dropping. So I don't see any sort of reason for any of these indices to start turning at the minute. I don't see any reason for them to turn. I'm not bullish on them at all. Any stocks that I have, look, if you're a few quid up on them or a few quid down on them, it could be worth just cancelling out of them. Any of the ones that you're down on, if you think they were more a speculative sort of buy, just jump out of them if they were speculative. If they're really good companies, then you just sort of hold on to them. Okay, so that's the sort of advice to anyone who is holding underlying stocks. But that's my opinion at the minute. I don't see any reason why the market will turn in the next couple of weeks, unless they do come to an agreement, which could happen, but it's highly unlikely. We then have China. So We keep our PayPal stocks. Look, I'm holding on to PayPal. Yes, I'm holding on to PayPal. Yes, I think that will recover. It's just, yeah, the money it's making, the way it's ran, the type of people that use it. It's more younger people. Yes, I think it will. I think it will continue to grow. But again, it's how can it reach more people? How can it become more profitable? So they have a couple of interesting quarters ahead. But yeah, I think they will recover. So yes, for me, I will be holding on to it. So we have a look at China. We took sort of a limit order here, and with this one here, we would have been stopped out if we had kept this one on this limit order that we talked about. So there was another setup here, stop loss, entry, and then take profit. But again, what we're looking to trade here is we're trading a sideways market, waiting for this to start to turn. Now, is this the opportune, the optimum time to trade the likes of China? No. But what does this do? What's going on in the world? What does this do to China? Can anyone hazard a guess what it does for China? Anyone hazard a guess what this will sort of do to China? Absolutely. Okay, so more import. Neil sort of hit the nail on the head. Take the focus off them. Okay, it will take the focus off them, which means then that, yeah, we'll sort of keep an eye on them, but any resources any country has been doing to keep an eye on Russia will keep an eye on China will be sort of now moved to sort of Ukraine and Russia. Say, make sure what's going on there, keeping the ear to the ground, making sure that the intelligence that they have is on point. So which means then this will take a little bit of the spotlight off Russia, which means then theoretically means that they have a little more scope to maneuver, which means then it could be a little bit of a lifting of the sanctions, lifting of the restrictions, lifting of all that sort of stuff. And if that happens, this could be the very beginning of the movement on China. But again, it's not going to be quick. It's going to be nice and slow. So we could potentially see this as a plus for China. But again, you can do one of two things. You can sort of jump in now with the likes of the CQQQ or something like that is the ETF. You can buy some of that and hold on to it. I'm thinking that this is the area to jump in, or you can wait till it breaks out of this sideways movement. Now, once it breaks out of this sideways movement, I would expect this to grab a bit of momentum to the upside. But again, you have sort of two options. You can buy it because you think it's low, or you wait for it to break out. So China signed an agreement with Russia to receive gas through Mongolia, Bloomberg 1 hour ago. But again, that is something that all countries are doing, trying to receive gas. And no doubt China will now turn around and start selling that back to Europe at a higher price. Whether it's Russian or whether it's Chinese. Or what to go, we'll sell all the Chinese gas to them, and then we'll just keep the Russian stuff. So it's part and parcel of it. But it means then that Europe and the US will probably have to reach out to China for some of this stuff that has stopped coming from the likes of China, the likes of Ukraine. For instance, wheat. Wheat has we'll come back to wheat in a few minutes, but wheat is what is Ukraine is something like the fourth biggest provider of wheat in the world. So hence why the wheat prices are taking huge jumps. So US oil, So we've had massive spikes on this. It's massively spiky. There's no sort of trades. There's no real rhythm or rhyme to this. If you buy it, you just sort of hold on to it because you're expecting it to continue growing. That's basically it. Would I buy it here? Nope. I would wait for it to come back into this $90 mark again. And if I buy it, you're taking a very speculative trade on this, and you're trying to make sure your stop loss is safe. But with the jumps and spikes on this can go either way. This could go either way. But we would expect this to continue growing, and it's trying to find where are the good areas. And even on the 4 hour, there's not really good areas to get in. We have, I'll pull this over. We did sort of have that area there, but again, would we have taken that long? Probably not. Probably not. I don't think that would have been an area where I would have jumped in. I don't see that. I don't see that as a place I would have jumped into here. So no, it's not something that I would have looked at. Anyone who did take it and made some money on it, well done. But remember, this is not how we trade normally. We don't take trades like this. You're jumping on sort of the bandwagon. If you get away with it and you make a bit of money, brilliant. If you don't, then you just lick your wounds and sort of walk away and say, well, unfortunately, the market was a little bit all over the place and I've done something I shouldn't be doing. Natural gas. Now, for me, natural gas has to come back into sort of this area for me to be looking at it again. Now, we do have sort of a phase 1, phase 2 here. So it's in phase 2 on the daily. So I wouldn't be looking to drop down to the smaller time frame to take this. But if this bar finishes like this, there is a potential break and retest. But for me, I would like to see it drop down a little further before I'd expect this to take off again. But as we can see, these lows are getting higher, and this could take off from here. Absolutely, it could. But it's not in a place that I would take it. Long position there. And again, we are looking at a bar that's not finished. So we're talking about a bar, today's bar that's not finished. So it's not something that we would be massively looking to trade. Entry, stop loss, looking for the pop up. But if that bar finished like that, that could be a potential trade. But I would much rather it to come back into this level. Was a good setup on the 1 hour. So let's have a look at the 4 hour. Oh, was that there? Was it? Give me a second. There, perfect. Okay, so let's have a look at the 4 hour. And you could have argued that that's a triple bottom, but it's in the zone. But again, if you'd have taken that there on this double bottom, you would have been triggered in and then triggered out, which meant having a loss. Again, if you took that, would your stop loss being below here? If it was below here, you're still in that trade. Potentially slightly down. If we go back to the 1 hour. But again, for me, probably not. Why? Because we're making lower lows on the 1 hour. These lows were lower. So potentially, if you're, did you take a limit order entry above that there, stop loss below here? But for me, no. If you're looking to short this, potentially a better trade. Potentially a better trade to the downside on this, in my opinion, on the smaller time frame. But again, I wouldn't be jumping in on that either. Why? Because we have sort of this little floor going on here. So no, not for me, either on the 1 hour or So someone has said the S&P has popped back up. Let me have a quick look. The use of popped back up. I do love it. So Shane, you must be looking at this at a smaller time frame to say that it's popped back up. Whereas for me, popping back up is on the daily chart, which is 100 or 200 pips. Let me have a quick look on the Nasdaq. Has it moved any better? No, just a little bit of fluctuation in the daily there at the minute. For me, they haven't really moved, but it has gone back up a little bit, and it is getting closer to that entry call again. Now, if you guys are looking at this and want to take this short, you have to have your stop loss above that. Stop loss has to be above that high, has to be above that there. But again, remember the market doesn't open until 2:30, so this could pop back up, trigger you out, and then drop like a stone. Or this could drop like a stone, get really close to you, hit and take profit, and then turn around and stop you out in the same day. Okay. So let's have a look at wheat, and we'll also have a look at gold, because a lot of people have been jumping into sort of the assets that we expect them to jump into. So we looked at this about a week ago, and we wanted it to pull back into this level here. We were looking at it with this high, so this 1, 2, 3, 4 days ago, whether it was going to pull back to here, wanted to pull back to there, and that would have been a trade. But now look, I had this in, and it broke through, and then it come back and touched it here. So it did exactly what we wanted, but on the higher level. So it came back down and touched this here. Now, when it come back down and touched this level, did anyone take that as a buy there on that level? Now, no idea what it's like on the 4 hour there, and what happened is it gapped up. So which means then if you had put an entry order on that, you wouldn't have been triggered in. So if you actually had an entry order there as a buy, you would not have been triggered in. Did anyone have that order placed? Assuming no one had that order there. Carol, this is something that you brought to our attention there, what, 2 weeks ago? Have you traded this long at any point? So no, most people have sort of stayed away from this. This may continue going. This may continue going. This is one of the commodities that probably will be affected quite badly with what's going on. Let's have a look at gold and silver. Pop back up to the daily chart. So if we look at silver, it has been pretty flat between this level. We then had a huge breakout here, and then it rejected the whole way down. Okay, whole way back down, and now normal trend has resumed to the upside. It'll be interesting to see what happens if we hit this level, whether it will reject or whether it will continue growing. But there is now a little bit of momentum behind gold. There's a little bit of momentum behind gold. So we could actually see a nice run on gold and silver to the upside. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'd expect it to break this with what's going on and sort of continue. And the same happens on the likes of gold. We had this trade here, which some of you guys have been sort of trading off of. It then broke that level, went up here, hit this double top. We wanted it to come back down, and it exactly did what we wanted it to do. We may see a new all-time high on gold and silver, Dyson. I would expect that, in my opinion. I wanted it to come back down, and look, it came back down, touched this area, and then popped back up. Now, the problem is that did anyone take it on that bar when it dropped down to this level? That would be one aggressive trade if you guys had taken that. Pop back down here. If you had taken that, then that was a super, super trade. But I don't think I would have taken it when I saw this. You got stopped out. Okay, Shane, unfortunately, you got stopped out. But yeah, if you'd have taken that there at the bottom on that horizontal level, was your level at the correct place? Russia's world's biggest palladium producer. Let me have a look at palladium then as well. Did you not have your stop loss below this level, Shane? It should have been. That should be a fairly straightforward level to have picked out. You played it too safe. Well, it's not that you played it too safe. If your stop loss was behind this level, that for me is safe. Okay, unfortunately, it happens. But yeah, this looks like it's. Yeah, I'd expect this to make a record high at some point over the next. Why? Because it comes down to momentum. That people are still have that thing as when bad things happen, we jump into safe havens, and the safe haven at the minute is gold and silver. Okay, gold has now sort of taken off, and it is now running. It's running lovely. Okay. Now, people talk about Bitcoin as a safe haven. Don't make me laugh. And this has just proven it, that we are now seeing people in gold. Gold has taken a pop to the upside. Silver has taken a pop to the upside. Now, what generally happens, or what has happened the last couple of times, is gold takes off. And then when people are at record highs and it's running and everyone has made a bit of money on it, then you have speculative traders then will jump into the likes of the cryptocurrencies, and then that's generally starts moving afterwards. But we generally get a nice run on the likes of the standard things first, and then people then go into the other more speculative asset classes once these are too expensive. So look, yeah, I'd expect this to hit a record high at some point as well. Let me have a quick look at Palladium. Is that what was said? And I suppose there's no coincidence there that we've had a pretty big pop to the upside on this as well. Did anyone take that trade there that we talked about? On the 7th of February, a month ago. And if you did, I'm assuming the contract would have expired. I know one of the contracts expired already. I think it was wheat. I'm assuming that would have expired as well before it would have taken off. So which is annoying, the way the contracts expire on eToro. We have set it to them to try and actually roll the contracts over rather than just charge us rather than stopping us out of the trades. But it's their software is not able to stop crashing from usage. So yeah, it's a different conversation for a different day. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. We did have a little touch on it there. So we've had, oh, I'm green again. Wow, what's going on? So yeah, we've had 2 bullish days. We've come back into this level here at the 45K level, which we rejected once, rejected twice. Now it looks like there's a little more momentum coming into that level. It looks like there's more room for this to pop to the upside. And again, it comes down to jumping the same as sort of silver and gold, is that people are now looking at this as a place where we can actually put money. It's where we can now make a bit of profit. I've just read an article where is some of the rich people that have sanctions, they're potentially trying to put some of their money into the likes of these assets, which are much harder to track and to try and avoid what's going on. But again, it's you're reading second or third or fourth hand information before it actually really happens. So again, hopefully this takes off. Now, obviously, we don't want the circumstances that's happened for the reason for it to be taken off. But again, only time will tell. After Russia was kicked out of SWIFT, there was a huge amount of things that Russia are going to now incorporate Bitcoin. But again, it's all secondhand information again. So it's all where it comes down to supply and demand. We're looking for some good news on this, and then if we get some good news on this, things take off, don't they? And that's the beauty of trading, is that trade on speculation and we sell on news, if that makes sense. Let's have a quick look across the other ones. So it looks like this has had a little bit of a pop to the upside as well. Similar. Are we looking at this now? Excuse me. Are we looking at this now as a short? Do we think that now is going to hit its head in and drop? Do we think that that's going to happen with Bitcoin as well? It's going to hit that 55K mark and then drop again? Matic had a triple bottom there and pop back up. We are at this trend line here again. So we have this descending triangle, or this huge head and shoulders pattern. This is the neckline. Okay, there's a shoulder, head, shoulder, and it's this just huge head and shoulders pattern. Is it going to drop to the downside? But if the market is going to pop, we'd expect it to go sort of from here, wouldn't we? Okay, we've had this double bottom on sand. This seems to be one of the ones that people are trading quite heavily. Is this also going to take off? Or are you going to be left holding the sandbag? Hey. Are we back at a point where you're happy to invest a little bit into it? Solana. Again, we had, I'm going to leave that there actually. So we had a sort of a double bottom there of sorts, and it's come down and hit this again. So we're getting that same pattern on most of the cryptocurrencies as well. Okay, it's now just a matter of, do we think that we're going to get a little bit of upside on this now and break out, or is it going to drop again? All right, everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Hopefully that helped you guys. Hope you have a lovely evening, and I will speak a lovely day, and I will speak to you all tomorrow. Anyone who's not in the Discord channel, I believe James popped the Discord channel up there, but anyone who is, send me a private message and I'll have a chat to anyone that's new. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.